Good morning.
Good morning.
That's what I like to hear. Welcome to East Rose Fellowship, Unitarian Universalist. Everyone online and here in the chapel, and I was advised also in the narthex, because they can hear us out there. Welcome to first-time visitors. We're very glad you're here. I'm Cynthia Hopkins, and I'll be your worship leader this morning. Our service today honors Veterans Day. We're observing it today. Our minister, Reverend Landerman Zucker, will be in the pulpit, and her sermon is entitled, Just Cause, Just War, ? The speech choir will also perform, continuing Katie Tenike's wonderful tradition. I'd like to recognize any veterans in our congregation this morning. Would you please stand? All right. For you and any veterans watching online, thank you for service to your country. Let's take a moment and greet those online. We can do this by standing up, turning to face those cameras that are right under the clock back there, and wave to everybody. Okay, and now you can visit with each other. Yeah, I thought I saw you put it there. There will be plenty of time to chat more after the service is over and we have coffee. I do have a couple of notes for first-time visitors. If you are here in East Rose for the first time, we have some Welcome to East Rose forms in the lobby. So if you could fill out one of those before you leave today, that would be really good. We can get you our newsletter and other things. Also, for our online guests, we hope you will identify yourself in the chat so we may better acknowledge your presence with us today. And if you'd like to share a joy or sorrow later in the service, you can do that by typing it in the chat, and the office will bring it forward to us to share with everyone. East Rose acknowledges that for at least 13,000 years, many tribes and bands have made their lives here, where our church home and our communities now exist. We remember and honor these people who made their homes in this land, the ones here now and those who lived here before. In peace, may we now share this land and honor one another. I have a call to worship from the book of Proverbs in Hebrew scripture, chapter 6, verses 16 to 19. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. And also from peace activist and Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh. We often think of peace as the absence of war, that if powerful countries would reduce their arsenals of weapons, we could have peace. But if we look deeply into the weapons, we see our own minds, our own prejudices, fears, and ignorance. Even if we transport all the bombs to the moon, the roots of war and the roots of bombs are still there in our hearts and minds. And sooner or later, we will make new bombs. To work for peace is to uproot war from ourselves and from the hearts of men and women. As you can see, our chalice lighter today is our minister. These are the words of Cynthia Landrum, in honor of those who have served and those who continue to serve at home and abroad. For peace and in war, we light our chalice and we offer our thanks.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good to see you. Good morning back there. Lots of kids today. It's wonderful. Yeah. I got that right. Hi. So today my theme is Just Cause, Just War, and I will be talking about the conflicts in both Ukraine and Gaza in my sermon. And I start our service today with a reading by American writer Margaret Wheatley. She wrote it in 2005, and it's called I Want to Be a Ukrainian. She writes, when I come of age, when I get over being a teenager, when I take my life seriously, when I grow up, I want to be a Ukrainian. When I come of age, I want to stand happily in the cold for days beyond number, no longer numb to what I need. I want to hear my voice rise loud and clear above the icy fog, claiming myself. When I get over being a teenager, when I no longer complain or accuse, when I stop blaming everybody else, when I take responsibility, I will become a Ukrainian. When I take my life seriously, when I look directly at what's going on, when I know that the future does not change itself, then I must act, and I will be a Ukrainian. When I grow up and I am known as a Ukrainian, I will move easily onto the streets, confident, insistent, happy to preserve the qualities of my own heart and spirit. In my maturity, I will be glad to teach you the cost of acquiescence, the price of silence, the peril of retreat. I will teach you all that I have learned, the strength of fearlessness, the peace of conviction, the strange source of hope, and I will die well, having been a Ukrainian. Our opening hymn is number 159 in the Gray Hymnal. This is my song. It's to the tune of Finlandia. Please rise as you are willing and able to sing together. Please be seated.
I'm gonna sneak right past you guys. Okay. We have so many kids here today. That's so exciting. Okay. So today I have a question for you. What does peace feel like? Have you ever thought about that? Riley?
It's like it's when you're like by yourself and you can do whatever you want. Okay?
When you're by yourself and you can do whatever you want, sure. Well, today's story asks us the same question. It's called, What Does Peace Feel Like? And it was written by Vladimir Radunsky and children just like you from around the world. Mr. Radunsky was born in Russia, emigrated to the United States, and later moved to Italy. He was well-traveled, and along the way, he visited schools around the world. And he asked children what peace felt like to them using their 5 senses: taste, touch, smell, vision, and hearing. Then he made pictures to go with their answers. Isn't that interesting? In my opinion, the more we make an effort to really feel peace in our bodies with all 5 of our senses, the calmer and more peaceful we become inside. And this calm inner peace helps us face challenges with strength and respond to them with love. And as we know, there is no shortage of challenges in our world today, so we should probably get started. I invite you to join me in considering what peace feels like. Mr. Radunsky's illustrations will be on the screen, but you may also like to shut your eyes and see what peace feels like inside of you. So, how interesting. The word peace is beautiful in all languages. And you can see some of them here. Hetep is Egyptian, Pe is French, Vrede, paz, Sol, pace, Shalom, Salam, peace, and bow wow. Did you ever close your eyes and try to imagine peace? What does peace smell like?
Flowers.
Like a bouquet of flowers in a happy family's living room. Like fresh and new furniture. Like wind that comes in your nose when you're sleeping. Like fresh air that makes you want to go out and sleep in the sun. Like pizza with onions and sausage that just came out of the oven.
Yes.
What does peace look like? Like a cat and a dog curled up together in a basket. Like new babies just born yesterday. Like a cloud high in the sky that just happens to be there giving happiness to everybody, white and fluffy peace. Like your mom that kisses you and hugs you. Like something beautiful that goes away but will come back. What does peace sound like? Like a growling bear of war who gets shot by a love arrow and the fighting stops. Like a silent day. Like laughter and happiness, children on their birthday, and parents when their children get married. Like raindrops falling. Like everyone's heart beating, making one big sound together. Like voices singing. Like no bad words. What does peace taste like? Like vanilla ice cream, chocolate ice cream, strawberry ice cream, banana ice cream. In fact, more than 100 children answered with ice cream flavors. Like water. Like sweet, definitely not sour. Like sour, but a nice kind of sour. Like your favorite food times 2. What does peace feel like? Like hugs your friends give you when you cry. Like the fur of my adorable cat, Alice. Like the fur of a baby mouse. Like a lot of fun because you know you are safe. Like someone stroking your back. You shiver a little, but it's a wonderful feeling. Just imagine what we could build with peace. I can't draw it all here. A book is too small for that. Peace and love to everyone. And that is the end.
Dog, cat, mouse. Dog, cat.
Indeed, all together. So now it's time for us to go to our classroom and explore together. Reverend Robin and the adults are going to stay here and keep talking about how we can work for peace in the midst of conflict and how our shared values of love, justice, and goodness fuel our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
So the center aisle, if you guys want to form a bridge, we will sing the children out.
We take the time in the middle of our service for some quiet in a sea of words, a very wordy denomination. So we're going to have some quiet, and then we're going to hear from the speech choir, and I know I'm really looking forward to that. So take a deep breath and let out a big exhale. Uncross your arms and your legs, close your eyes, drop your shoulders. Relax your face. Feel how much tension you hold in your jaw, your shoulders, your body, your arms, all through your body, from the top of your head to the soles of your feet. And then just breathe. 4 beats in slowly through your nose, 5 or 6 beats out slowly through your mouth. Feel how that creates spaciousness for you in your body, your mind, your heart, and your spirit. Let it prepare you to receive the rest of this service and what comes in your own life with grace and openness. Just breathe. We're just going to breathe together now. 4 in through your nose, 5 or 6 out through your mouth in a rhythm. Breathe and allow. While you breathe, I offer these words from the Corrymeela community. Spirit of life, who sees the weakness in acts of aggression. Ground of being, who feels the fear in moments of acute helplessness. Cure this warring madness and shield all who fall in harm's way. Leach the poison from the mind that thinks strength is shown in a bullying force. And may an equal strength and solidarity give resolve to those whose aim is to protect and respect not just the ones we call our own, but all with whom we can share a better, more peaceful world. Breathe into a peaceful heart and an open mind. We'll remain seated to slowly sing our meditative hymn, Circle Round for Freedom. We will just sing it one time through.
I'll play it through once, and it's best if you look in your books because the melody is not on the top, it's in the middle line, and you can make up your own harmonies.
November 11th, Veterans Day, was originally referred to as Armistice Day. Armistice Day marked the ceasefire agreement between the Allies and Germany that ended World War I. The quote, war to end all wars, unquote. The fighting ceased on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. The total number of military and civilian casualties exceeded 40 million souls. There were 20 million deaths and 21 million wounded. The total number of deaths included 9.7 million military personnel and about 10 million civilians. Poet Wilfred Edward Salter Owen captured the horror and savagery of that, quote, war to end all wars, unquote, in his poem Dulce et decorum est. He was killed in France on November 4th, 1918. The poem ends with the phrase, Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. It is a line by the Roman lyric poet Horace. The line translates as, quote, it is sweet and fitting to die for the homeland, unquote. The poet proclaims that to be an old lie. This visceral poem places the reader or listener in the trenches along with the soldiers. It is a difficult poem to experience, but the truth of war must be faced if it is to provide fuel for peace. Dulce et decorum est, Wilfred Owen.
Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags,
we curse through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge.
Men marching asleep, many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshot.
All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of tired, outstripped 5 lines that dropped behind.
Gas! Gas! Quick, boys!
An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time.
But someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea, I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me.
Guttering, choking, drowning.
In some smothering dreams, you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in.
And watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like a devil's, sick of sin.
If you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs.
Obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues.
My friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie.
Dulce et decorum est, pro patria more.
In 1938, Congress designated November 11th as Armistice Day, quote, dedicated to the cause of world peace, unquote. But world peace proved elusive. In 1941, the U.S. entered World War II. The Korean War followed in 1950. In 1954, Congress renamed Armistice Day to Veterans Day to be inclusive of all veterans, not just those who served, and emphasized the duty to continue the pursuit of an enduring world peace, to honor the veterans' sacrifices, quote, so that their efforts shall not have been in vain, unquote. Does an individual veteran understand their effort to be? When the public reflexively says, thank you for your service, how does the public understand the nature of that service? This past September, the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Mark Milley, spoke in Arlington, Virginia, at a farewell ceremony before his retirement. As the highest-ranking and most senior military officer in the United States Armed Services, he eloquently explained the meaning of serving in uniform.
It's about our democracy. It's about our republic. It is about the ideas and values that make up this great experiment in liberty. Those ideas and values are contained within the Constitution of the United States of America, which is the moral North Star for all of us who have the privilege of wearing the cloth of our nation.
It is that document that gives purpose to our service. It is that document that gives purpose to our lives. It is that document that all of us in uniform swear to protect and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
You see, we in uniform are unique among the world's armies. We are unique among the world's militaries. We don't take an oath to a country. We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator, and we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual.
We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that is America, and we're willing to die to protect it. The blood we spill
pays for our freedom of speech.
Our blood
pays for the right to assemble.
Our blood,
Our due process.
our due process,
Our freedom of the press.
our right to vote,
And all the other rights and privileges that come with being an American.
we will never turn our backs on the Constitution. That is our North Star. That is who we are. And that is why we fight.
The veteran's entire family also serves alongside the veteran. This Veterans Day weekend, let us also honor the sacrifice of the families. The long deployment, Jahan Dubrow.
For weeks, I breathe his body in the sheet and pillow. Lift a blanket to my face.
There's bitter incense paired with something sweet.
Like sandalwood left sitting in the heat, or cardamom rubbed on a piece of lace.
For weeks I breathe his body.
In the sheet I smell anise, the musk that we secrete with longing, leather and moss. I find a trace
A bitter incense paired with something sweet.
Am I imagining the wet scent of peat and cedar, oud, impossible to erase?
For weeks I breathed his body in the sheet.
Crushed pepper, although perhaps discreet, difficult for someone else to place.
There's bitter incense paired with something sweet.
With each deployment, I become an aesthete of smoke and oak. Patchouli fills the space for weeks.
I breathe his body in the sheet.
Until he starts to fade, made incomplete. A bottle almost empty in its case.
There is bitter incense paired with something sweet.
And then he's gone. Not even the conceit of him remains. Not the resinous base. For weeks I breathed his body in the sheet.
He was bitter incense paired with something sweet.
Every veteran longs for peace. We must examine and learn from our past to achieve peace. In a 1948 speech in the British House of Commons, Winston Churchill said, quote, "Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it." The History Teacher by Billy Collins.
Trying to protect his students' innocence, he told them the Ice Age was really just the Chilly Age, a period of 1,000,000 years when everyone had to wear sweaters.
And the Stone Age became the Gravel Age. named after the long driveways of the time.
The Spanish Inquisition was nothing more than an outbreak of questions, such as,
How far is it from here to Madrid?
What do you call the matador's hat?
The War of the Roses took place in a garden.
And the Enola Gay dropped one tiny atom on Japan.
The children would leave his classroom for the playground to torment the weak and the smart, mussing up their hair and breaking their glasses,
while he gathered up his notes and walked home, past flower beds and white picket fences, wondering if they would believe that soldiers in the Boer War told long, boring stories designed to make the enemy nod off.
Let us keep alive the flame of hope for an enduring peace. The Cure of Troy by Shamus Henney.
Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong inflicted and endured.
History says don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme.
So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge.
Believe that a further shore is reachable from here.
believe in miracles and cures and healing wells.
Call miracles self-healing, the other self-revealing, double take of feeling.
If there's fire on the mountain and lightning and storm and a God speaks from the sky,
that means someone is hearing the outcry and the birth cry of new life at its term. It means once in a lifetime that justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme.
Our final selection today is A Blessing for Peace by John O'Donohue.
As the fever of day calms toward twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease.
We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them.
For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history.
That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost.
That we might see through our fear,
Cries of the lost.
that we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression.
That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters.
That the wolf might lie down with the lamb, that our swords be beaten into plowshares.
And no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the holy mountain.
The misunderstanding about my grandma Reese's departure from Ukraine around 1912 has reached near legendary status in my family. It turned out, as I discovered when she was already in her 90s, that her family did not flee with jewels hidden in a jar of schmaltz. They left. Yes, there were pogroms. Yes, it was scary. But they left primarily because another family, the Levies, had moved into their village and opened a competing dry goods store across the street. My great-grandfather Abraham declared in his words, "If we're going to have competition, we might as well live in America." So they left, and they settled in Pittsburgh, where I grew up. And yet another myth exploded. They did not come steerage in babushkas. They were educated and middle class. My grandmother, who claimed she didn't have an accent, recalled saying to me, "Steerage? What's steerage? We had dinner, we had dancing." So Raisa Unical Landerman was a Ukrainian from the village of Rogi, due south of Kyiv in the region of Cherkasy Oblast. So I am part Ukrainian. And if I resided there now, I would be among the more than 250,000 Jews living in a country under siege. It's a chilling thought on many levels to consider whether I would be crouching in safety at the gleaming Shabbat Center in Kyiv or hiding in a root cellar in Rogi. But I would be scared. I know that. And I would want to defend my homeland. I'd pray for peace while brandishing whatever weapon I might acquire, perhaps one of the Molotov cocktails common citizens have learned to create. And I'd hope that the majority of humanity was with me. Hypothetically, Grandma Raisa and her family could have chosen instead to emigrate to Palestine in 1912. At the time, large numbers of mostly Sephardic Jews had been living there for generations, with origins in North Africa, Spain, and the Middle East. The tidal wave of Ashkenazi or Eastern European Jews landed in Palestine after World War II in the wake of a devastating Holocaust, and the American Jewish community is comprised mostly of Ashkenazis, including my family. It follows then that in this possible alternate history, I could be sheltering in Tel Aviv or on a kibbutz right now, caught between the age-old anxiety over safety and a desire to live in peace. Even so, I am here with you today in Gresham, Oregon, not in either of those war-torn places, as we find our way through these conflicts, which ask us to question our role as potential protesters, commentators, and peacemakers. There's been so much discussion about this on my collegial message boards and Facebook pages. And my colleague, the Reverend Dan Schatz, implores us to be mindful about how we engage with the humanitarian disaster unfolding in Gaza. He writes, "If we talk about this war as a conflict between Jews and Muslims, or even Jews and Palestinians, we're not being careful or caring in our speech. If we equate opposition to Israeli government policies or concern and anger on behalf of innocents killed in Israel's attack on Gaza with anti-Semitism, we're not being careful or caring in our listening. If we equate anger at the brutality exhibited by Hamas on October 7th and a lack of trust in Hamas with Islamophobia, we're not being careful or caring in our speech or our listening. At the same time, if we equate ignorance of history and the context of words with hatred of one group or another, we are not being careful enough." We could apply these same principles to Ukraine, although the ongoing war there is not especially complicated compared to what's happening in Israel. Putin views the dissolution of the Soviet Union as a tragedy and intends for his legacy to be reunification. Many have drawn comparisons to Hitler's invasion of Poland and Czechoslovakia, a blatant violation of international law with absolutely no justification. As we've seen on many occasions, Putin is a paranoid and seasoned liar and manipulator, and now qualifies as a war criminal too, according to the Geneva Convention of 1949. This is what the convention document would call a war of choice. He wants the full breadbasket of the former Russian Empire, and he doesn't want a democratic Ukraine to exist, and even claims Ukraine is not a nation. This conflict has simmered for years. It's not new. He claims with incredible chutzpah that his objective was to denazify Ukraine, a statement made even more offensive by the fact that the Ukrainian president is a Jew who lost relatives in the Holocaust. The ever-escalating conflict in Gaza is far more complex, as we know. Jews are living in their ancestral biblical homeland, a story that began in Genesis 12 with Abraham, and so are the Palestinians. Exile and return reside in the hearts and stories of both of these people. Exile and return, exile and return, exile and return. I encourage you to research the history of the region before leaning into false equivalencies or specious narratives, particularly the ones you may have seen on social media. When we repeat slogans like "from the river to the sea," which got a member of Congress censured this week, it sounds very poetic and woke, but do we actually know what we're saying? Do we realize that this has been a rallying cry to destroy Israel and with it the Jewish population? But that it also is something else. It's also seen as a plea to return the region to its 1948 borders when Jews and Arabs were living together in Palestine. Are we aware that Hamas was given the keys to Gaza by Gazans in an election in 2007? Or that they intentionally headquartered themselves on civilian sites like schools and neighborhoods? Does this justify the death of more than 11,000 people there since October 7th? No. Is Hamas culpable? Yes. Is Israel culpable? Yes. Does any of this cancel out the 1,400 brutally hunted and murdered people on October 7th? No. It's all ghastly and heartbreaking and cruel and insane. I have learned so much myself in the past couple weeks doing research. It's been very rattling, but very enlightening. Most notably, I learned or relearned that Palestine has actually never been its own state. When Israel was founded in 1948, the British had been in charge. Before that, the Ottoman Empire. Before that, the Empire of Ayyubid. Before that, the Christian Kingdom of Jerusalem. And we just keep flowing backward through all these empires and kingdoms, through the Roman, Slavic, Babylonian, and Persian empires, to the Judean kingdom of the 12 tribes of Israel, which we're probably more familiar with from the Old Testament. And even before that, independent Canaanite cities. Why does this matter? Primarily because a claim to the land undergirds the narrative of both of these combatants and asks us to decide which of them has a more just cause and whether this conflict, or any conflict for that matter, can be deemed a just war. Putin claims that his assault on Ukraine is a justified aggression. Netanyahu makes exactly the same claim for Israel, and the bodies just pile up. But the designation of a just war, an actual thing, has pretty much gone the way of the dodo bird, according to most political scientists, even among the Catholics who created the doctrine in the first place. The notion of any war being just is just obscene, in my view. although many argue that World War II was a just war, and I can see their point to an extent, given the facts and the circumstances. We might add the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, to that list. In his piece entitled, "It's Not Personal, It's Just War," the writer Jeremy Myers notes that when people and nations march off to war, it's common to believe their cause is righteous, even in denial, that they are defending themselves against tyranny and that God is on their side. But which God? He writes, "Go ask a Muslim jihadist and he will tell you that the violence they engage in against others is holy, right, and just. The truth is," he concludes, "that all wars are just wars, or no wars are just wars. And since we know that most wars are not just wars, we deceive ourselves into thinking that our war is the one just war, because we are fighting evil." Just war theory originated with Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century and was further developed by Francisco de Vittorio in the 15th century. It seemed like a useful idea at the time, an attempt to curtail warfare and stop evil and violence. And the criteria is very strict. 1, a just war can only be waged as a last resort. 2, a war is just only if it's waged against a legitimate authority. 3, a just war can only be fought to redress a wrong suffered. 4, a war is only just if it is fought with a reasonable chance of success. 5, the ultimate goal of a just war is to reestablish peace. But it's still a war, I might add. The violence used in the war must be proportional to the injury suffered. How would you calculate that? You heard in the speech choir how many people died in World War I. The violence used in the war must be proportional to the injury suffered. 7, the weapons used in the war must discriminate between combatants and non-combatants. Civilians are never permissible targets of war. Boy, is that one not being followed. And such calculus, it's chilling. Does any of that sound like what's happening in Ukraine or Gaza right now? It's important to remember, as hard as it is to think about, that all wars are wars that directly and disproportionately impact children. Parents in Ukraine are sewing tags with their children's blood types into their clothing. Israeli and Gazan mothers weep over small, lifeless bodies. Let that sink in. We grieve for another country being reduced to rubble, for more innocents terrified and potentially bombed out of their homes. And for what? We really must stop this. But how? Is it possible? Has humankind become so addicted to armed conflict and numb to the destruction it causes? The veterans we honor this weekend, they pay the price every time for these deadly gambits. They've left their American cities and towns to fight, to be injured, to die in conflicts that were deemed just by the powers that be. Where is the justness that justifies the loss, the trauma, the shattered lives, the zero-sum outcomes in places like Vietnam, Afghanistan? Are we simply hardwired for war as human beings? Writing in Scientific American magazine in 2018, Brian Ferguson asks this question in his article, "War is not part of human nature." Hawks and doves in this scholarly endeavor disagree. Some claim that the roots of modern wars and genocides go back tens of thousands of years, and they have found evidence of wars in small societies throughout the prehistoric period. They argue that it was a form of conquest and also natural selection, with the fittest prevailing in acquiring mates and resources. One evolutionary theory argues that the instinctual tendency to protect one's tribe morphed over time into group inclinations toward xenophobia or othering. If wars are a natural eruption of instinctive hate leading to the killing of outsiders, then we can surely grasp why wars continue to proliferate and what they always seem to be about. But doves challenge this view. They argue that humans have an obvious capacity for warfare, but their brains are not hardwired to identify and kill outsiders. It was a consequence of societies expanding and becoming more complex beyond the hunter-gatherer cohort. A transition to agriculture formed the basis for the development of political states. It was a social circumstance, and it became about dominance and borders and control, just like now. As we've seen throughout history, once established as a norm, war has the tendency to spread, with violent people replacing less violent ones. In some cases, dictatorships replacing democracies. We've seen this, we see it today, and we must stand as a peaceful and steadfast sentry against it. As Aristotle wisely noted, it's not enough to win a war. It's more important to organize for peace. Humans learn to make war, and they can learn to make peace. And peacemaking starts in your own heart, not in the halls of the UN. Gandhi put it so well when he said, "Strive to become an expert at living. Be good to those around you in concrete ways. Create an island of peace in your own life. Because if you do, it will spread. And if enough of us do this, our islands will meet, ceasing to become islands and becoming whole continents. World peace exists literally in the action each one of us takes in our own lives." So is pacifism the answer? Some scholars argue that it's as inherently self-defeating as just war theory. Of course, we have to stand up for what is right. We have to stand up against evil, even if we feel powerless at times to do anything against these forces. But the third way between pacifism and war is nonviolent resistance, the way of Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Thich Nhat Hanh, whose words we heard earlier. It stands up to evil where it is found, but with a commitment to do so nonviolently. It's just so hard to do this in a world bathed in violence and bombs, especially as there are no proven strategies for nonviolent resistance like there are for warfare. 'Tis more the pity. How do we show the world a different and better way to harmony and peace than the way it knows? All the sermons and breathing meditations and prayers and joys and sorrow stones and wonderful readings from the speech choir, all of those things, they won't make a difference unless we internalize them and take some action in the world. We might ask ourselves, how can I connect these crises to these crises as a Unitarian Universalist? Well, of course, I'd point us towards our principles, especially the sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and ask us to make that real. How can you be a peacemaker? There are UU justice organizations you can connect with and dozens of international organizations striving to establish a beachhead for peace in this weary world. Look online, talk to one another, learn, activate. And while you do, please be mindful of the narratives you embrace and the causes you espouse as just. There might be more there than meets the eye. This week, I am uniquely aware of my Ukrainian and my Jewish roots. And I'd like to believe that if I was under siege in Kyiv or Tel Aviv or a kibbutz near the Gazan border, I would exemplify the kind of Ukrainian that Martha Wheatley describes in her poem and recognize my imperative to be that person now, remotely, actively, from where I stand. That in my maturity, I will be glad to teach you the cost of acquiescence, the price of silence, the peril of retreat, that I will teach you all that I have learned, the strength of fearlessness, the peace of conviction, the strange source of hope, and that I will die well, having been a Ukrainian. Blessed be, blessed we, blessed be the people of Israel, Gaza, Ukraine. Shalom, salam, peace, and amen. Our final hymn is Where Have All the Flowers Gone by Pete Seeger. The words will be on the screen. Please rise as you are willing and able.
Every
between the speech choir and that powerful sermon and that incredible song, I'm having a moment. Maybe you are too. So just bear with me. I'll try to change the tone here. In the words of Eric Walker Wickstrom, it is said, "The Lord loves a cheerful giver, yet we will accept from a grouch as well." Let each of us look into not just our wallets or our checkbooks to see how much we have with us. Let us also look into our hearts and see what is available there. How much love, how much generosity, how much faith, how much gratitude, how much hope, and let us take our offering from that account. Half of each week's Sunday collection is shared with a local nonprofit. For the months of July through September, we share with Our Just Future. That's such a lovely title, Our Just Future, formerly known as Human Solutions. This organization works for vibrant, healthy neighborhoods where all people can share in the security, hopes, and advantages of a thriving, supportive community. I encourage you guys to go to their website and just see all of the things that they are doing for our community. If you are a first-time visitor here today, just let the basket pass you by and be our guest. We will now gratefully receive the gifts of the congregation. Extinguish the chalice to the words of Maureen Killoran. We extinguish this chalice flame, daring to carry forward the vision of this free faith, that freedom, reason, and justice will one day prevail in this nation and across the earth.
Thank you, Cynthia. Our benediction today is a poem entitled "The Rock Cries Out to Us Today" by Maya Angelou. Each of you a bordered country, delicate and strangely made proud, yet thrusting perpetually under siege. Your armed struggles for profit have left collars of waste upon my shore, currents of debris upon my breast. Yet today I call you to my riverside, if you will study war no more. Come clad in peace, and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me when I and the tree and the stone were one. Amen.
all need to just take a big, this has been an incredible service. I have felt it down to my toes. I want to thank everyone involved with making this possible. Mary for that beautiful music and leading us at the end of all the flowers. I have also thank yous to the speech choir, especially Char, who has carried on this tradition and brought us all together. Bonna, Char, Carol, Phyllis, and Sherry, and myself. We have enjoyed the rehearsing, the learning of these poems, and the presenting to you. Thank you, John, for the AV. We had quite a long time getting everything set up yesterday, so it all flows smoothly today. Thank you to our minister for her wonderful, encouraging words. And to our greeters, Eric and Kim. And if I've left anybody else, thank you. How many of you have never been to a holiday tea called Winterfest at Eastros? See, there are some of you who need to know about this. We've been doing this for 35 years on the first Saturday of December. We don't want to let it slip. I think we did let it slip when we were closed for COVID, but other than that, it's hard to have a tea party online on Zoom. But we are having one here on December 2nd from 1 to 3. There are sign-up sheets in the lobby. There's a poster, and we really would. It's free. It's absolutely free. You could just make a donation when you're here. Cash or checks only, please. No credit card stuff going on that day. But this event is lovely, and it's made possible by the work of a lot of people donating their time, their baked goods, their energy. And then you come here, and this chapel is transformed into a beautiful tea parlor with linen tablecloths and fine china and lovely food, and perhaps even some entertainment we're working on. Looking at you two. Yes, at any rate, it's lovely, and everybody has a good time visiting. So just, if you'd like to come, reserve a seat out at the sign-up in the lobby, and let us know how many will be in your party, so we know how many tables to set up. Okay, enough of that. I'm going to ask Robin to get up and talk about an initiative, and then I have one more announcement after that.
Thanks, Cynthia. So a couple things. First of all, a number of you received a scam email or text that was allegedly from me. I want you to know I would virtually never ask you to buy a gift card or a gift certificate, ever. And it's important that when you receive these kinds of things, you look at the address that it's coming from, because often you can tell from the address that it hasn't been legitimate, though it kind of looks legitimate. So I think this time it was Rev. Robin Zucker at something. That isn't one of my email addresses. So please be mindful. Do not buy gift cards and gift certificates. If I want to do some sort of collection, I will be more direct about that. Okay, so that's number one. And thank you to those who reached out to tell me. Secondly, starting next week, we're going to start our initiative of collecting things for care bags for the unsheltered. There's a whole stack of these in the foyer. Please take one home. You're not expected to bring everything on this list, but if you could bring something on this list, there'll be some Rubbermaid bins in the foyer, and we'll be collecting these things through Christmas Eve, and then we'll assemble the bags. And the idea is for us to give these out to individuals that we encounter on the street. So I think that's it. Oh, and next week also, in addition to starting this collection, we're going to have a meeting after the service, sort of a forum on social justice here in the chapel. It's not a committee meeting. You're not going to be asked to commit to something, but an opportunity to relaunch a social justice allies team here, or initiative for all of us here at East Rose, and think of what we've experienced, what has worked, and ideas for the future.
And what about the timing for the ashes ceremony?
Oh, yes. And then, unless it's pouring rain, we're going to have an interment of ashes for Dean Knox and also the 10 Ikes after the service. And if someone wants to see me after the service to tell me how in the past the holes have been dug in the memorial garden, I would be delighted to hear that.
Yeah, and Katie's sister and husband and Joey tonight will be here for that service as well. And Carol is bringing her daughter, yes.
When is that?
That is after service next Sunday, unless it's pouring rain.
We'll do the interment first, and then
Yeah.
I'll have the meeting.
Okay. Lastly is something that's very dear to my heart. I'm leaving tomorrow for 4 days for Arizona and be with my sister and her husband for an early Thanksgiving. And when I get off the plane, the first stop we're making is to my mom and dad's grave. They're buried at the Arizona Memorial Cemetery for veterans. And so this Veterans Day is always very dear to me, and the cemetery should still be all decorated out with flags and everything for Veterans Day. So I'm looking forward to paying my respects. My father, for those of you who don't know, I know a lot of you do, he was a prisoner of the Japanese for 3 years and 9 months in World War II. And late in his life, he was finally able to write about this experience. He was well into his 70s when he wrote about it, because it's just too hard. I mean, this is true of many veterans, most veterans. So my sister and I made arrangements to get this published and gave it to him, the books to him on his 95th birthday, and he was over the moon. He'd given out copies right and left, everybody he knew, and anyway, I've brought several of his books. They're in the lobby. If you have not already read his story, please take a copy. They're free, gift from me and my sister. And after you've read it, just please pass it on out into the world. So that was the thing he really wanted to do, was make sure that his story of going through a war and the aftermath of that war was understood by the younger generations. Okay, with that, oh no, I think I have one more announcement was handed to me. Hold on.
I would like to comment on that book.
Oh, yes.
I was sorting through books when I moved.
Yeah.
And I came across that book. And I thought, oh, I haven't read this. And I sat there amongst all these other books and read the whole thing through. It was just so fascinating.
Yeah, he was quite the storyteller, my dad. Yeah, thank you, Carol. This is from Tara, and she has an announcement. We are looking for one more child care worker during Winterfest. So that was something I forgot to mention, is we're making arrangements so that the children have an activity. I think they're gonna make cookies or something anyway, so the adults can have an adult tea party here in the chapel. There will be a fun activity and refreshments for the kids. If you can join us, you will be paid for your time. So talk to Tara, and you just have to pass a background check, and Sherry will take care of all of that for you. It's no big deal, unless you've been incarcerated for, anyway. So talk to Tara for more information on that. Okay, and with that, we're concluding our service. If you're online, please exit YouTube and connect to Cafe Conversations via Zoom. Those here at East Rose, please stay and have some coffee, talk a little more, and we'll hope to see you next week. Bring a friend.